welcome back to part 5 of our Chinese entertainment series. This is China through SGlasses. I'm Wu Fan.
And I'm Jingnan.
And today we'll pick up from where we left off on C-dramas. So moving on from characterization, right? We have the more logistical aspect of things, which is the costume, makeup and props, also known as 服化道. So just now we mentioned that it's quite tropified, right? So the female lead who's very pure and innocent will have like bright and pink makeup, and then like the evil supporting female lead will have like dark eyeshadow and everything like that. But nowadays there's something called 半有酒妆容. Okay, so first off, right, we have to address this very interesting trend, which is nowadays, right, somehow all the period dramas seem to have the same kind of makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not just makeup, hair also.
Yeah.
Costumes also. Everything,
yes.
the whole shebang.
Like the hashtag no makeup look. Yeah. Something like that. But there's also something called 半有酒妆容. So 半有酒妆容 means like your makeup seems to be perpetually the same throughout the entire show. No matter if, let's say, you're kidnapped and you're like stuck in a very dirty hut for like 10 days, you always come out with like perfectly well done makeup, and it just seems like
it's unrealistic.
Yeah, basically that. And it's popularized as a meme in the Chinese entertainment industry to call out actors. Netizens who are shitting on this female actress called Ju Jingyi because she cares a lot about her brand image. So much so that she can forego storytelling to make sure that she looks good in every single scene in the drama.
Okay, like 半永久 literally means semi-permanent. So it's a meme, but like the origins of it is like actual semi-permanent makeup.
Yeah.
Which is medical, like kind of cosmetic procedures.
It's like you kind of tattoo the colours onto your face.
So it's kind of like microblading your brows, tattooing your eyeliner, tattooing your lips. So what it does is that you are literally getting makeup tattooed on your face. So it's semi-permanent. It fades over time, but in the time that you have it on your face, it's kind of like permanent. Like you don't need to touch up your makeup. It's just almost always there. And the reason why people use it is because like it's so... Also it's popularized like by a lot of Korean plastic surgeons, like the actual medical procedure. We're not talking about the joke. The joke is that it is so common for all the girls to look exactly the same, and they look exactly the same regardless of their circumstance. Like what Wu Fan mentioned, they can be in the middle of like the jungle and they've been there for like 6 years, and like but they have their hair and makeup like flawless. It's the joke of like those American apocalypse movies, like zombie movies where the female characters still have their makeup on. Like it makes no, and they're still perfectly shaved. Like it just doesn't make any sense. Yeah, and another thing that is very important is period dramas. About what Wu Fan said about period dramas having the same makeup and hairstyle and even costumes. If it's a fictional period drama, people can still kind of let things slide.
Yeah.
But if you kind of pride yourself to be historically accurate, or at least to pride yourself in the sense that your story is set in a certain dynasty, a lot of the times the costumes and makeup and hairdos don't fit the actual historical dynasty. It's just incongruent in the sense that like it fits what the modern beauty standards are, but it doesn't fit the actual beauty standards of that time, especially when it comes to eyebrows. Like, I don't understand why everyone goes for the straight Korean brow.
Yeah, exactly.
When they are literally in the Tang Dynasty. Like, do you know that the Tang Dynasty people literally drew mountains for eyebrows?
Yeah, and they actually had like 花店on their face, which are like little ornaments they add around their face. It could be like in the shape of like flower petals and like other things.
And they will be just very, very weird modern makeup and hairdo on very supposedly ancient characters. It's just it takes you out of the... It's not immersive at all. It takes you out of the experience. Another thing that is not kind of the fault of the production is that actors and actresses love to get veneers. You know what?
Oh my god, the teeth, right?
So like veneers are like porcelain things that you can glue onto your teeth to make them look perfect. So it'll be like literally like stark white, and you will have like perfect teeth. Like
yes.
But the thing is, you are in ancient China. Like why you? It's just so it's called 跳戏, where you
feel like you're being like taken away from the actual drama.
Actual
you can't
drama.
immerse into it.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
And what was I gonna say? Yeah, and it's just like fashion nowadays. Every week you have a different fashion trend going on. People in the past also had fashion trends.
Yes.
Like writing as a modern writer, if you write about the past, you can't just like imagine that people in the past are so backward that they don't have anything and they don't have their own like culture and...
I don't know, it's weird. It doesn't makes sense. And also like the color schemes and color palettes are kind of weird. that also has to do with the lighting and everything.
If you remember what we mentioned about like the different categories of Chinese dramas, a lot of them say they are 古装剧, but honestly at the end of the day, they're just 偶像剧.
Yes,
it's like
correct.
it's not historical drama.
It's called 古偶.
Yeah, it's called 古装
偶像剧.
Yeah, in the end, it's just basically a feel-good lovey-dovey story that's put in the historical context. Like they might have more conflicts that drive the story because of the historical context having more limitations for certain characters, but at the end of the day, it's just a feel-good show that doesn't really have any realism historically.
Yeah. It doesn't, it's very frustrating.
Yeah.
Because also on top of that, we have to talk about props. I think this is not technically props, but I think CGI is being very, very much utilized in modern day dramas. But it is utilized very poorly, very badly, because they do not have the budget for it. So, like we mentioned, there's a lot of things that cannot be shot in real life because of the genre that we're talking about.
For example, fighting a dragon,
like Xianxia, and like a lot of like, what if you have a demon, what if you have monsters? These things require computer generated images, CGI. But the thing is, the investors already spend so much money on hiring the most popular actor and actresses of the time. They don't even pay their playwrights. Also, they don't even pay their screenwrights. What makes you think they're going to spend a lot of money on the CGI? So what you end up with is horrible. It's literally called 5 毛钱特效. 50 cents. It looked like the
50 cents CGI.
50 cents on the CGI.
Yeah.
So it's like very frustrating because you are watching this thing that it's supposed to be a life or death moment, and then you see this terrible like pixelated looking dragon in the background like breathing fire. You're like, god damn it, what am I watching?
It's really funny.
I have like a small bone to pick.
Okay.
This is something that genuinely pisses me off to no end.
Okay.
Another trope that I feel like a lot of dramas like to use, especially like period dramas, they love to get the characters to fall in water, and then they will have this part of this plot point where one character is going to drown because they are running out of oxygen, and the other character kisses them to give them, it's called 肚气 in Chinese, to give them like another
oxygen,
breath. Here's the thing, you breathe out mostly carbon dioxide. So that is already problematic. On top, so that doesn't work that way. Secondly, shooting underwater is very laborious and very tedious and very expensive because of a lot of technicalities. So what they do is they green screen it. They green screen being underwater, but you cannot mimic. So you can green screen a lot of things, but being underwater is not one of them, because you can obviously tell if a person is underwater by how wet they look, and like what, like clothes flow differently in water. And like, you know what they do is they will have people like in front of green screens and they'll blow fans on them, and it just looks so stupid. And they are bone dry. My biggest gripe is like they are obviously bone dry and in front of a green screen when they're supposed to be underwater. And then when they emerge out of the water, they will put a little bit of like a sprinkling of water
it
on
makes them look beautiful.
It makes them look beautiful. Like the wet hair look like I just showered. Instead of being drenched, your eyeliner should be running down your face, your mascara, your false eyelashes. But it's just so stupid. I cannot. Yeah, like it also has to tie in with like the props and the makeup and costume.
By the way,
like,
she said small bone. Quite big.
What thing?
You said you have a small bone to pick, but quite big the bone.
Yeah, I'm just so upset about this. Okay,
Actually, like on the point of like bad CGI, right? A lot of people, or rather a lot of actors who don't want to personally be involved in a dangerous or laborious situation like being underwater, or like sometimes just having to run a few steps. They don't want to do it, so what do? They either CGI or they get someone else to do it on their behalf.
They get stunt doubles.
Yeah, so basically they just make sure that they look good all the time, their makeup don't run all the time, and they just don't do anything apart from standing and posing and being pretty.
Yeah, it's like almost like they're modeling for magazines instead of filming an actual drama.
Yeah, and I just want to bring up an example of a show that came out before the 21st century. It's Hong Lo Meng, like the first adaptation of Hong Lo Meng. Like
Chambers of the...
Red Chamber?
Red Chamber.
Dreams of Red Chamber.
Dreams of Red Chamber.
Yeah. So that the production of Hong Lo Meng, right? They were actually they put in so much effort into creating this production to bring this Chinese novel to life that they did a lot of research into ancient texts, even down to the makeup and the costume. So the makeup artist, I'm so sorry, I can't remember his name, but he actually went to read volumes of ancient Chinese literature to make sure that he can pin down what specific eyebrow to use for each character, because of course, Hong came out like many years ago, and people have written poems about it and created their own imagination about it through like writing, through painting. So that makeup artist, he went all the way back through these ancient archives just to find exactly what Liu Yemei means.
Yeah.
It's like this level of dedication really doesn't exist anymore, because now people just want to produce films, snap, fast, and they don't really
earn money.
Yeah, it's about earning money rather than like digging into the like context and like trying to recreate something, bring it to life.
Actually, like producing art.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to say that people in the past do it better because they have more dedication and the pace of life is slower and they just care more about things. But it just really seems like the shows nowadays,
I think it's the rise of capitalism.
Yeah.
The whole idea that it is now like producing films is something that's profitable. Like they are no longer producing it to create art or like create content. They're producing it because investors are involved and it is a commodity that has been commodified lah.
Yeah.
I've like some thoughts about like 服化道. There's one that's very good. It's called 长安十二时辰.
Yes.
But yeah, the plot is like I have no comments on the plot. It's kind of dumb. So if you really want to see very good costumes, makeup, and props, you can watch this show called, I think it's called the 48 Hours of Chang'an City or something like
24?
that.
Sure.
时辰. Oh, 21st hour, sorry.
Sorry, I'm not good at math.
Okay, it's called The Longest Day in Chang'an.
Ah.
The English name is called The Longest Day in Chang'an. It's a very good show to watch if you want to see actual representation of what the costumes look like.
The color grading is also like film
They
grade.
did a wonderful job. Yeah. Okay, moving on to
Chuanbang. So like Chuanbang is actually a situation where mistakes in the production of a film that makes the audience realize that, you know, it's kind of like breaking a 4-4 situation where the audience realizes, wait, this shouldn't have been happening in the show. Why is this happening? A lot of them are related to props. Specifically, there's a phenomenon in historical Chinese dramas where something obviously modern pops up in a historical drama scene. So for example, in the 新还珠格格, there was a white van parked in the background.
it's a Qing Dynasty show, by the way.
Yeah, Qing Dynasty show. I mean, like, and then for 延禧攻略, there was a phone under the emperor's table.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So like the actor, right, while waiting for his scene, he was playing on his phone.
Oh no.
Yeah, and then when the director started rolling, he just chucked the phone under the table. But you could see a bright white phone underneath the table.
Damn.
Yeah, and then like some of them have like aircon in the background. I think that one is quite common because a lot of Chinese films are filmed in this place in China called Hengdian, which is known for being extremely hot.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of aircon that's not well hidden in the background. Yeah, and then there's also like a tissue box in like plastic wrapping in 如懿传. Yeah, and then in terms of like the dialogue itself, there's a lot of examples online, but the one that really stuck with me is the emperor is like crying because his concubine is dying, and his concubine cups the emperor's face and like very lovingly says, 你脸上有好多皱纹，我希望可以用熨斗把它熨平. Which means like your face is so wrinkly from crying, you're already so old, I feel so sad. I wish to use the iron to iron out the wrinkles in your face. What?
Yeah, it's anachronisms like that lah. Like things that don't belong in that period, and it's rather modern being inserted in.
Yeah, it shows two things. So one is the screenwriter themselves. They are so like, they didn't check the kind of language that they're using. So like they're just writing an historical story using very modern language. Yeah. And then another thing is just the production company didn't check the film before it's published.
They didn't put in the effort to just go through it one more time and be like, what the fuck are you saying? Yeah, but it's very it just shows kind of how cheap the quality of the production is a lot of the times.
Yeah, and the last gripe we have on the, I guess, the logistics presentation side of things is that like a lot of historical dramas, I realize a lot of our dissing is on historical accuracy, but
because you don't watch a lot of modern day dramas.
That's very true. Yeah, a lot of them, right? People in the past, let's say you are talking about a hero who's like a 正人君子, like a very upright person. He will hold himself a certain way because he's brought up that way. So normally their shoulders will be square.
Yes.
The way they hold the way they hold themselves will be like of someone of like good status, good upbringing. The way they hold the teacup won't be like, I don't even know, like, I mean, I don't even know how people hold teacups nowadays, but like people in the past really have very specific customary ways of doing things.
And like body language.
Yeah, and like actors in the past, they actually go for body language classes, dialogue classes, how to make use of their eyes and everything. They have to nail the character down. But nowadays, a lot of these historical dramas are just like produced so haphazardly that there's this like sentiment online that like 美人 and 英雄没有气魄, which means like the beauties of ancient China and the heroes, they don't seem to have a spirit that embodies the kind of character
that they're supposed to be.
portray. Yeah,
It's kind of like if you watched The Crown and like if you watch The Crown as a show and none of them act elegantly. You know, like this something. I mean, it's something that it's a social construct what elegance is. But a lot of times when you see people talking about the royal family in America, in Britain, they'll be like, oh, they're so elegant. Like Princess Diana is so elegant because it's drilled into them. Like these are things that are actually like when you think of someone of certain social standing. These things are associated, like your body language, the way you speak, your mannerisms are associated with how you are as a person. So in those kind of very elite private schools in UK, I'm very certain that how you eat, how you walk, how you talk, how you shake someone's hand is all being taught to them to portray a certain caricature of what being elite and upper class is supposed to be like. So as much as you can disagree with that and you can say that, you know, like classism is bad, but you have to acknowledge and understand that coming from a certain period, especially when you're trying to emulate the vibes of someone who is like, just boil it all down to, if you are acting as a character, you should be emulating all aspects of that character, not just the dialogue and the personality and the motives and goals, but also the details like the mannerisms and the characteristics and like the small behaviors, even like, you know, the things maybe they fidget, maybe they don't, maybe they stutter when they speak. These are things that are important to acting. So there was this show called 甄嬛, The Guardian, I think, I can't remember
the Guardian.
English name is. And this guy, one of the two male leads is a university professor, and he's like a very shy person, like a very reserved person. Let's just put it this way, and he's like very good at kind of keeping his feelings concealed. He's not someone who's very verbal and
conceal, don't
outspoken.
feel.
Yeah, conceal, don't feel kind of vibe. And there was this shot where he was on the phone with his love interest. And he was very happy that the love interest caught him, and then the love interest like flirting with him, whatever.
Oh my
and
god!
Then it's like, and then the camera did a zoom in, so he was reading something, like he was reading a stack of papers, and he was flicking the corner of the page with his hands, like, you know, like when you, it's almost like dog earing a page, but he's actually like flicking it, and he's like smirking to himself. Like, these are the details that make or break a character.
Yes,
when you
yes.
as a character, so if you're acting as the emperor and you are talking like Alian, sitting like Alian, not like Abeng, you know, it doesn't make sense. These things have to like make it make sense.
Yeah.
Is my point.
Yes.
Yeah, so on top of the fact that the mannerisms and the body language don't make sense, a lot of the time the sound also doesn't really quite make sense because a lot of it is dubbed. So I think this is something that a lot of people who have never watched Chinese dramas before are very surprised, because they are used to watching dramas where the actor and the actress is speaking like
they are capable of saying their lines.
Stop!
This is sadly not the case for C-dramas.
Okay, but like, okay, genuinely, when you watch C-dramas, a lot of the C-dramas are dubbed over, even though they're not even dubbed over in a different language. You know what I'm trying to say? Like in maybe
Chinese on Chinese dub.
like for anime, maybe it's like originally in Japanese, then you dub it in English and Chinese. But no, these are Chinese actors who are speaking in Mandarin, but they get dubbed over anyway.
Yeah.
But this happens for a few reasons. So the first one is that dramas need to be aired in 普通话 or standard Mandarin. So this is very difficult for a lot of actors because they come from various parts of China and they might have an accent according to the region that they come from.
Especially the Hong Kong actors who are used to speaking Cantonese.
God,
They really cannot.
They really cannot. So to standardize the pronunciation throughout the production, voice actors that are trained in standard Mandarin are employed in post-production. I kind of have like a small bone to pick with this because I feel like it's very difficult for you to change your accent, but Western actors do it all the time. Sure, they might not do it well, but a lot of the times you have British actors acting as Americans, Americans acting as British people,
Tom Holland, right?
Australians acting as British people, and even amongst Americans, there are different regions that have a very distinct. Like, a New York accent is very different from a California
Northwestern
accent,
also, yeah.
or Southern accent, and like these people are obviously not from these places. Like, but they have to learn the accent to embody the character. But why can't Chinese actors do that?
Yeah. Okay, one small reason is a lot of them are not actually actors. They might be singer turned actors, idols turned actors, models turned actors.
They can't even say their lines, let alone say it in a dialect.
They
or like say
can't even act. They can't even cry. They must use eye drops. What are you talking about?
Angela Baby.
Angela Baby, 抠图.
Oh my
无
god.
不自伤.
Yeah. So that's one reason. Another reason is that the filming conditions are apparently absolutely horrid in a lot of the places. Like, so what they do is that they will have multiple sets, right? So let's say you have a drama that is a contemporary drama, you need an office and you need like a home. So what they will do is they will build the sets from scratch, but they will build the sets concurrently. So what that means is like you'll be filming in one location and right next door to you there will be construction. So it's very difficult for the sound people to pick up the sound of your actual dialogue. So what they do, but the thing is they don't want to spend more time, because time is money in production. They don't want to actually wait for the construction to be done in order to start filming. So they want to have it happen concurrently. So as a result of saving money, they just employ voice actors to dub over the lines.
As a result of saving money, they spend money.
No, but spending that much, like voice actors are
Oh
kind
yeah,
of cheap.
that's true. Employing the idol to stay for one more day versus
like
voice actors.
Voice actors are kind of cheap. Like no offense, it is incredibly difficult to do their job, but they are not really highly paid.
It's quite sad lah.
Yeah, and also voice acting is sometimes used to improve an actor's otherwise very poor performance.
Non-existent performance.
Yes, okay, but yeah.
So for example, when the actor is crying, they can't
God.
cry, but the voice acting is so moving.
Good.
Yeah, you're like, oh my god, they're really crying.
It's so dissonant because you're like, what am I seeing and what am I hearing?
It's
Like what is
face
going
and
on?
mouth different.
Yeah, and censorship may also be required to change some lines in post-production. Not just censorship. Sometimes they just broadcast certain things and the lines make no sense, and then they're like, okay, we have to change the lines. So what they do is, so a lot of times when you see like if you understand Mandarin, you're listening and to the lines and you're looking at the mouth shape and it doesn't tally up.
Yep.
It's probably because from the time they filmed to the time it was actually broadcasted, there were some mishaps along the way. Either they realized that the line is shit, or there was censorship, or
like they changed a few episodes. They took out a few episodes, and now like logically it doesn't make sense.
So people have to kind of put things in together. And another thing that is funny that arises from this problem is that popular voice actors may often dub several series a year, resulting in drama fans recognizing their voices.
Yeah. So like your favorite male leads all have the same voice. Wow.
Yeah, it's very stupid. Like, I don't know. I really hope that, because for me, I really very much prefer having the original voice of the actors and actresses. But I understand these constraints, and I also, I just hope that the Chinese drama can do better. You know?
Okay, let me give you a hard choice. As a viewer, right, would you prefer watching a drama where the voice is shit, or like the voice is great but it doesn't match the mouth?
That's actually a very hard decision.
Yeah.
I think I will go with the voice is great, but it doesn't match the mouth. Because, okay, I don't know.
But it's very sad lah. Like, this
so
is the
sad.
reality that we have to face as viewers.
Like, I was watching 苍兰诀 recently, which is like when the fairy falls in love with the demon or something like that. I don't remember the English name. But the male lead, right, has a very strong, like the actual actor
Chongqing
has
accent,
a very strong Sichuan accent.
Yeah. I know.
Like, he cannot even speak, like he can't enunciate properly.
He sounds very funny when he speaks.
Yeah, he's like a caricature of a person when he talks.
He's also a very funny person in general. Yeah, but he really cannot.
But it's very agonizing, like, why can't you do your job? Okay, anyway. I'm sorry.
Yeah, actually, okay, the last point, maybe like a happy point, question mark, is that a lot of these voice actors, right, who end up having to dub a lot of dramas in 1 year, they end up, there's this joke that like a lot of them are just dating each other through the dramas.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Because it's the same few people over and over again. Okay, moving on to censorship. So, like we mentioned, Chinese entertainment is very much restricted by censorship laws and regulations in China, and Chinese dramas are no exception. So one example of censorship rule that has been imposed on Chinese dramas is there was a period of time around the 2010s, like early 2010s, when time travel dramas were super popular. So essentially the premise is like a modern person will time travel to an ancient Chinese dynasty and fall in love and whatever not. But because they were so popular, literally almost every other drama was a time travel drama, that the Chinese government and state was like, no more time travel dramas. None. And as a result, a lot of the popular IPs of time travel novels that got adapted into dramas later on had to change their premise. So some of the more interesting ones I saw was I think 庆余年 was one of them. 庆余年 was one of them. So it was originally a time travel drama. 知否 was also originally a time travel drama.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So instead of being a time traveler, the 庆余年's drama version was that the male lead is a novelist and he traveled into the novel he is writing. So he kind of he is writing a novel.
He book travel instead
of time travel. Yeah. So in order to get around that censorship. But I think I didn't really know why it was the case. But according to my mom, it's like it's kind of dissonant for modern day viewers if you keep blasting time travel shows on television.
Or is it because people will try to like get into car accidents
I
so that
don't
they
know,
can time travel? Time travel is always car accident or
electric shock.
Yeah, electric shock or like fall down the stairs.
Fall into a body of water.
Oh yeah, and then when you get picked up on the other end through a pond.
Yeah, like you were drowning in
so maybe they're afraid that people will just purposely get into accidents. I don't know.
Yeah. And then another censorship rule was that actual historical figures cannot be adapted into dramas. I think this was after Wu Fan and Jingnan. I'm not very certain. But essentially, the Chinese government was like, I am sick and tired of your distorting Chinese history figures and, you know, putting a bad rap on them, like distorting the actual historical accuracies and fabricating stories and just being very weird about a lot of things. Like Wu Fan and Jingnan was so weird. I don't know. But yeah, so as a result, you can no longer adapt real life historical figures. So unlike the West, where you can make movies about Winston Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, like all these people, or like William Shakespeare, you can make any story you want and write them in any, like, if you want to write William Shakespeare as a homophobe, as a gay, as like a transgender person, you can do whatever you want. But you can't do that in China because there's this censorship law protecting like historical figures. This one is kind of controversial because a lot of people actually agrees with this because they're like, let's stop teaching our younger generation, because a lot of people don't know the historical figures very well. So their warped perception of these real life figures are from these poorly produced and poorly written dramas. It's that like kind of sensationalize their life stories in very inaccurate ways.
So like the only form of history education is through dramas lah.
Yeah, which is kind of problematic. So actually a lot of people support this censorship rule. Yeah. So one example of someone drama production getting around this censorship is The Longest Day in Chang'an, which you mentioned before. So Chang'an is an actual city. It is Xi'an.
Capital.
It was the capital of China for over a millennium. Yeah, and the Chang'an story was The Longest Day in Chang'an was set in the Tang Dynasty under, I forgot which emperor it is, Tang Xuanzong. It's the same dynasty as Yang Guifei. So as we mentioned, the drama itself cannot actually reference any historical figures because that is censored and banned. But they change the name very subtly. So they get names that are like similar sounding, and they change Yang Guifei's name into something other Guifei. Like it was very interesting where people online were trying to guess who they were referring to based on the names of the characters.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting to see that because the story was actually based in that particular dynasty under that particular emperor.
I see. Okay, so like on the point of like Wu Fan and Jingnan, another thing that made it very weird as a viewing experience was that there was censorship in terms of dress code. So like imagine you're watching a period drama, right? And like wow, everybody's wearing like beautiful costumes and everything. And then suddenly one day you realize that whatever you're viewing is no longer costume, you only see the person's face.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to Wu Fan and Jingnan because people were apparently showing too much boob. And the government was like, no boob, only face.
the way you say.
Yeah. So now, okay, I guess this is a test of how good you are at acting. Like if you cannot show body language, you can only show your facial expressions. Can it still work as a storyline?
Okay, okay, so the premise is, the show is called 武媚娘传奇 or The Empress of China. It talks about the one and only empress in ancient China, which is Wu Zetian.
Wu Zetian, yeah.
So it is set in the Tang Dynasty, and apparently actual Tang Dynasty women.
There was a period where it was very free for...
like the entire vibe of Tang Dynasty is free and easy, you do whatever. But also people are quite liberal with their clothing in the sense that women tend to show a lot of cleavage.
Yeah.
Here's the point of contention. Exactly how much cleavage did these women show is something that is very widely contested because from modern day standards, people are like, no, they were ancient women. Why would they be showing any amount of cleavage in the first place? They must be talking about like the décolleté, that means like slightly above the cleavage, like they were just showing like a little bit
collarbone maybe.
Yeah, collarbone, like, you know, so like, but the thing is, it's like pointed, like even if you look at the sculptures from those point in time, you can very clearly see cleavage.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Empress of China drama kind of pushed that a little bit because they made the clothing, like the costumes,
very low cut lah.
Pretty low cut in the sense that not only do you see cleavage, a lot of the times the actresses had like very busty costumes. That's the only way I can put it.
I see.
It's kind of like 菊花台. You know that 满城尽是黄金甲.
Oh, yes.
Yes, so there was another show that was very controversial. It was a movie actually. It was very controversial that starred Jay Chou. All the women,
as the emperor, right?
Yeah, all the women had very busty costumes.
Nanping.
Yeah, because like people were just criticizing it. Like, yes, they showed cleavage, but was it that booby? And then the Chinese government is like, you know what? This is too booby for our liking. But the thing is, it had already started broadcasting, so people realized halfway through the showing of the drama that the shots of individuals all became incredibly cropped to the point where you can only see their head, and because it took up so much of the screen, there was this meme called 大头娃娃 where all the characters were relegated to be like
big head babies. Yeah,
because it was so like it's such tight of a shot.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can say that there's definitely censorship involved lah, because they found like very beautiful celebrities like Fan Bingbing. Of course, she's like seen as honestly like a sex icon kind of. No, I don't mean sex icon in the porn way. It's just like she's seen as like a sexual object to like a lot of fans.
Everyone is seen as a
yeah, but like, but the thing is like, okay, so according to the news, right, the production team actually spent 30 mil on costume.
Yeah.
And like Fan Bingbing herself had 260 different outfits.
Yeah, but not all of them were very booby. Some of them were like extremely big and intricate.
Yeah, but the thing is, now you don't see most of that. Like, the money just goes into seeing a HD version of her face.
So that is the dress code version of like censorship. Another thing that Chinese government censors is very strange to me particularly, because I feel like this just doesn't make sense. One of the shows called Goodbye My Princess, or Dong Gong in Mandarin, was for a period of time censored from Chinese video streaming platforms for portraying racial tensions between minorities in mainland China. But the thing is, it's not like the racial kind of like racial censorship in Singapore, where you are forbidden to say bad things about like other races.
You should promote racial harmony instead.
Yeah, it's not about racial harmony. It's very random in the sense that in the show, okay, so if you're not aware, China has many different like racial minorities and ethnicities, because China is not like, China was essentially an empire. It's not really a country as much as it is a bunch of countries merged into one,
conquering neighboring tribes over the years.
So there were a lot of like minor ethnicities in ancient China that were bordering ancient China, that were not yet in modern day China. Like, today's China is very different from ancient China in terms of geographical locations. So, as a result, the ethnically Han emperor was invading one of the ethnic minority kingdoms bordering ancient China, and this was part of the plot for the show. And as a result of that war scene, the show got censored. I was very confused, because basically, if you are taking that into consideration as poor representation of racial tensions, and instigating racial tension in China, that makes no sense.
I feel like that you need to cancel a lot of other shows.
You need to cancel all of ancient China. Like every Qing Dynasty show must be erased.
Yeah, but Qing Dynasty, basically the minority is the emperor leh.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, how can that be?
Qing Dynasty.
Yeah.
What else? The other
Yuan Dynasty also. Yeah.
So like it just doesn't make sense. I'm not sure what happened afterwards, but even the fact that it even got put down in the first place really just makes me very confused. Sometimes I just feel like they are censoring for no good reason, or conspiracy theory time. They don't like the show and they are pulling it down for a reason that they need to come up with. Does that make sense?
They're using like a more I wouldn't even say that this reason will be like accepted by the mainstream. They're just using like a dominant narrative kind of way to push things down. Oh, which is also relevant to the next kind of censorship, which is like censoring homosexual themes. And actually we'll be discussing more in our BL Boys Love Dangai episode in the future. But 2016, 2017, 2018, that was like the explosion of BL dramas year. And then after that, a lot more BL dramas were being produced. But then, was it 2020? Or like there was a certain year when the Chinese government just decided to place censorship on a lot of these homosexual themes. And it tied into the wider narrative of having to educate men to be masculine. And
it's just, they were discouraging the normalization, quote unquote, of deviant social behavior such as homosexuality.
Yeah.
CCP's words, not mine.
Which is, honestly, like, I find it very sad. Actually, okay, I find it very sad that, because, okay, here's the thing. If you're talking about like historical accuracy, a lot of dynasties throughout China's history is actually well known for having like a lot of bisexual romantic relationships or like gay romantic relationships. Like, in fact, in the Han Dynasty, it was like BL paradise, man. There was like this emperor, I think Han Aiti, there's this phrase called 断袖, which means like you cut your sleeve. And it actually comes from Han Aiti's love for his male concubine or male consort Dong Xian. So like Dong Xian was sleeping on his sleeve. Then he was like, oh my god, can't wake up my beautiful baby. So he used his dagger and he cut off his sleeve that Dong Xian was sleeping on so that he could go and do work in the morning while his lover continues sleeping. And like there are like a lot of these stories throughout ancient China, but like if you're talking about historical accuracy and you care about it, then why are you censoring a lot of these stories that actually could be real? Like it could be real.
It doesn't match the current narrative that they're trying to perpetuate as the government.
Which, I mean, okay, if you think about it, right, a lot of this censorship is really like historical accuracy versus modern day sensibilities and what the government is trying to push. So like Wu Meinyang, like showing too much cleavage. It happened in the past, but now cannot. And then like homosexuality also now cannot. Yeah.
Yeah. And tying into what the current modern day government wants to perpetuate in terms of the image of China, there's actually a quote unquote negative impacts actually factor into why certain shows are being censored. So it started when Theory Weekly, a title linked to the state newspaper The Beijing Daily, posted an article criticizing period dramas and singling out Yanxi Palace in particular, or Yanxi 攻略. So it listed several negative impacts these shows had on Chinese society, like propagating a luxurious and hedonistic lifestyle, encouraging admiration for imperial life, and glorification of emperors overshadowing the heroes of today. I have no comments. The magazine also named several other popular period dramas that are imperial dramas, like Ruyi's Royal Love,
如意芳菲,
and Scarlet Heart 步步惊心, and The Legend of 芈月 or 芈月传. So Yanxi Palace was seen as promoting incorrect values, commercialism and consumerism, not the socialist core values that Beijing wants to see promoted. So censors tend to turn a blind eye to entertainment programs of frivolous nature, but that's only until they become too popular and threaten social norms, morally and ideologically. 延禧攻略 was a perfect example of such a show. So basically, they are trying to say that like, you are idolizing imperial life too much and ancient China too much, and these things are morally unacceptable.
Maybe
and,
like debaucherous, maybe.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, okay, I'm gonna save my opinion to the end. Another possible reason why they have censored the show is because it was too popular overseas. So if a show is popular outside of China but carries the wrong values, authorities might think it's better to not have it at all. Beijing is keen to control the narrative of China's past and present. So Xi Jinping is trying to promote the idea of the rise of China as peaceful and that China believes in harmony. Yanxi Palace, however, paints the image of China as intrigue and backstabbing. So they're like, no, if you don't paint us in a positive light, whatever positive light means to them, then we're not going to show it at all. So, like, I really think that this makes no sense. Like, there's no other ways to explain it, but that they are just too uptight around what they think is good and bad. And I think art ought to be just art in a sense that like, you're not, why should you assign labels as and moralize and categorize art in a sense that you're telling a story? Yes, the story can have immoral aspects, but does that mean that the story is not worth telling?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes immoral stories need to be told as a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
And so, like, is all your stories going to be like made for children? And, like,
Yeah, only the kind-hearted people will win all the time just by the power of kindness.
Yeah, so like it's really very frustrating because these censorship restrictions pigeonhole what morality is and what it means to be a good show. That means you must have the most outrageous morals, you must paint all the good people in good light and stuff like that. Like, apparently you can't paint the police or the legal system in bad light.
And the police must win.
Yeah,
in China.
so can you imagine how limited your storytelling can be?
It's like Fast and Furious cannot work in China. No such thing.
Yeah, so it's very agonizing and very limiting for the expression of freedom and expression of art for artists and screenwriters. Like, I really pity screenwriters who have to be creative and make a compelling story when you are working under such strict restrictions.
They're like stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, you cannot satisfy the market, and then you also have to go through all the checks and balances from the government's perspective. And like, okay, my take on this is that I feel like the Chinese state, right, is trying to form a new brand image. They want to create a brand image of modern China that is like somehow divorced and detached from its historical past. And like, I feel like it's quite sad that this is essentially just othering your past. Like, your past is not good enough. It is filled with certain flaws that you don't want to be associated with your current modern image. But like, how can you move forward into the future if you just like ignore everything that, like, the thousands of years that built up this civilization?
If you deny yourself your past, then how are you supposed to really stand firmly in the current and in the future? Yeah, like, I know this is very controversial, but like, I think that people need to, not just people as in individuals, but like countries and governments need to accept their flawed past and own up to it and kind of embrace it. I mean, that takes a lot of courage, and it's much easier said than done. But when you are able to accept yourself for who you are, then you realize that there's a lot more that can be done. I mean, it's much easier said than done.
Honestly, this is like chicken soup that applies to individuals and countries.
But I mean, to be fair, we also have to acknowledge that there are a lot of groundbreaking shows that address things like corruption. So like, one of the most, like one of the first few that was very shocking to a lot of Chinese citizens by describing corruption in like all levels in Chinese government was 人民的名义. It came out in 2015. But 2022, there were also like 沉默的真相, and another one was, I can't remember the other one. But yeah, these also talk about corruption within the Chinese government, and even though some changes were made in terms of 沉默的真相's final ending, it was still managed to be broadcasted. So it's kind of, we're not saying that nothing bad about the government can ever be broadcasted in China. There are certain censorship laws and regulations, but there are also very famous, like 沉默的真相 was one of the most popular and highly rated and touted dramas of 2022. It's a very good show, but I didn't watch it because it's so depressing. I don't want to watch depressing shows.
Like, we already know that the world sucks. Let's just not confirm that.
It's kind of triggering if you are like very sensitive to SA and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a lot of very, like, there's murder and a lot of,
like, very violent, maybe?
It's not very violent. It's very bleak.
Okay.
It's very depressing and bleak. So, but don't let that stop you if you're really interested. So now we were talking about shows that are good. Let's recommend one drama each that you think that people should watch.
Okay.
Starting with Wu Fan.
Okay, I'll start first because I have a very small pool to draw from. Okay. Disclaimer, I don't watch a lot of dramas because I cannot deal with the emotional anguish
Yeah.
of like, yes, full stop. Just the emotional anguish. But for me, not so recently, I watched 御赐小仵作, which is a historical mystery drama that is also like a bit of a comedy romance drama. But overall, the reason why I was very impressed by it is that okay, when it comes to mystery dramas in China, right, it really cannot live up to the TVB glory of the past. So a lot of the mysteries are like, you already know who the bad person is, because the bad person has certain kinds of makeup. It's very, very obvious. But 御赐小仵作, right, it starts off with a case that seems like it has nothing to do with everything else, but in the end you realize that everything is interconnected, but it's interconnected in a way that's like not obvious in your face, and the characters themselves are very not tropified. So the main character, the girl, right, she's a 白甜, but she's not 傻.
Yeah.
So she's very cute, and she's very sweet, and she's very kind, but she's not so kind that she just believes that everybody is nice, and she just willingly gets kidnapped by the bad person, then the guy has to save her. She's actually very intelligent, and she cares a lot about her profession as a, I guess,
Coroner. She was the imperial coroner.
Yeah. But what's the modern version of a coroner?
Forensic.
Yeah, she's kind of a forensic scientist,
No,
but in the past, no,
the coroner. What's the coroner?
Like the person who does autopsies.
yeah. Basically that. So she's good at science if you think about it, and probably math.
Women in STEM.
Yeah, women in STEM. Yeah, and like she cares a lot about her work, and the thing is, because her work requires her to like come into close contact with like
Dead bodies,
right? It's very inauspicious. People look down on her, and also people look down on her because she's a girl, and that comes with a lot of limitations, right? But the show doesn't just go around saying, oh, she's a girl, so she can't do anything, and and in the forefront of her consciousness, she doesn't keep saying, oh, I'm a girl, so I have XXX limitations. The forefront of her consciousness is, I'm a coroner and I have a profession, and I have a mission to solve mysteries and to make sure that people who die have a truth to tell. Yeah, and the male lead, right, is a very sensitive, intelligent person, and he is capable of communicating his feelings instead of bottling them up like a toxic man. Like, he does not have toxic masculinity, and he actually understands that everybody has like circumstances, and okay, also he's not a very physically strong person. Yeah, but he's not like, just because I'm not physically strong, I'm very insecure about that, and I need to make sure that I struggle through everything myself until the point where I fall down and like
no one can pick me up, and I refuse getting help.
Yeah. No helping me, please. He's not like that. And like all the other supporting characters, right? They're very well rounded.
Yeah.
It's like maybe like the main male lead's brother. He is like a warrior. He's also very intelligent, but somehow he cannot understand jokes. It's like, it's very funny. And then like the female lead's female best friend, she actually is I guess you can call her like a warrior or something, and like she's
very good at martial arts.
Yeah, she prefers the freedom of like, you know, not being part of the imperial palace, and she's a very good PR manager lah. And like these are all like very cool little quirks, and the reason why I like it is because I don't normally watch romance dramas for the romance, because I feel like if an entire show revolves around romance, to me it's like not very exciting. I like the fact that romance is like weaved in. It doesn't interfere with their work, but they make it work somehow. And in terms of character relationships, I love how everything is just so wholesome and healthy. So for example, for the female characters, they have legitimate friendships and they care for each other, and it's like a girls help girls situation rather than, you know, female jealousy and all that kind of toxic competition. And it's the same for the men also. Like, they're very emotionally intelligent. There's not like a lot of toxic masculinity in terms of, oh my god, if I'm physically weak, then I'm very worthless, or if I portray my emotions and I am an expressive person, then it emasculates me in any way. And everyone plays multiple roles depending on their social circles and their milieu, and people are just aware enough to understand that, you know, if you're put in a very difficult position, the other characters can empathize. And I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's a show about like cracking down cases and dealing with conspiracies. So the characters are portrayed in a way that they all have high IQ and EQ, which is very refreshing. Because the most painful experience when watching Chinese dramas, I feel, is when the storyline is illogical, and at the same time the characters themselves are too stupid to understand even the simplest things or pick up on the simplest things. So you have a gigantic misunderstanding and it just, wastes 10 episodes of your life just to clear that one thing up. And at the end of the day, I feel like this show has a lot of symbolisms that are recurring and also very well explained. And I love how everything just gets tied together nicely in the end.
It's a good show. Like, it hits all the checkpoints in a sense that I've watched it as well. I also enjoyed it very much. It basically has, like we said, very likable and well-rounded characters with genuine motivations that make sense. And like we mentioned, she's the female lead is not completely incapable and useless.
Yeah.
She is very good at what she does. I think that is something that really makes her very likable. So moving on to my recommendation, I struggled a lot, but I think the one for me that I think most people should really go and watch is Nirvana in Fire, I think it's called. Yeah, in English. Lang Ya Bang, yes. So, Nirvana in Fire. Lang Ya Bang is one of those dramas that is very old, not very old, but it's pretty old. I think it came out in 2015 or 2016.
Quite iconic legend now,
It's a very iconic show. It came at a point where everyone was sick and tired of poorly made productions and horrible plot lines and very bad acting. This show has some of the best actors in China, like not in terms of how famous they are, but in terms of how experienced they are. So there was a lot of 老戏骨, it translates to old experienced actor, I guess. And the conflict in the show, the plot is just very good. I really think that, so it's adapted from the novel and I read the novel. I think it's one of the few adaptations where the adaptation improved upon the source material.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. And it's basically, without spoiling it too much, a story surrounding revenge as well as seeking justice in ancient China, but it's like a fictional ancient China. And also fighting for the emperor's throne. So there's a lot of plotting and scheming and strategizing, and it's very well done. It's to me it was like 一环扣一环. So it's a very solid logical chain where one event leads to another until the entire thing cascades down and like there's a grand reveal and you kind of see where the show is going, and the conflicts are they don't feel forced or manufactured. The conflicts make sense within the context and the world building of the show. And not to mention that I just really think that acting is really above and beyond. The dialogue makes sense. It's not like terrible dialogue or like not nonsensical lines that don't make any grammatical sense or historical context or like historical sense. And also the costumes, props and makeup actually looked pretty good. Like I have to say that myself. Like it's not exceptional and phenomenal like out of this world, but it's really good for that point in time. Like when it came out in 2015, it was very good, and I feel like it holds up because I've rewatched that show a couple of times. And if you rewatch a show and it holds up a few years later, I really think that it's worth recommending to other people, especially if you've never watched C-dramas and you want something that's like almost foolproof. Like I feel like everybody will enjoy the show. So to conclude our episode for today on Chinese dramas, do you want to share your thoughts?
My thoughts are that I feel like both of us, we feel very strongly about creative productions, and we really hope that in general the industry can improve and the right kinds of people can receive the spotlight and the credit that they deserve. So like while putting together this episode, right, we were struggling very hard to find one drama that we really wanted to recommend, because there were just so many that cannot live up to even like the basic standards. Which like I don't want to say that we are like just, I don't want to say that we're just like armchair sociologists. We're just sitting here and like, because we haven't been in this industry ourselves, we don't know the struggles of creating a good production. But sometimes, there are very basic things that people, you should just put like effort into.
Yeah, same thing for me. Like when I was trying to look for a recommendation, I had to balance out things like plot, acting, production, and rewatchability, and also like the underlying story. At the end of the day, I feel like with any piece of content and media, it's about telling a good story. And I recognize that it is incredibly difficult to tell a good story, but when you are incapable of having a plot that makes basic sense and your actors are not capable of acting to the point where they need voice acting as a complement to save their performance, it's very hard to say. Like, on the whole, we feel like Chinese dramas, there are really great Chinese dramas, don't get us wrong, that talk about very important issues. But the thing is, on the whole, I personally feel like Chinese dramas have a lot of catching up to do as compared to K-dramas or Western productions. And that's very sad because we both see the mountain of potential that Chinese dramas have.
Exactly, and let's also not forget the social political limitations instead of like for example, like what the audience likes to see, what the government likes to see or not see. So yeah, we understand that it's a struggle, but we believe.
we will hold on to our faith.
Yes.
And we will hope for a better day.
Yes.
And with that, we've come to the end of our episode. Time for us to shout out our social media.
Yep, so so you can follow us on Instagram at china.through.sglasses, where we share highlight reels and engage with all of you listeners. We also upload them on YouTube Shorts. As for our podcast,
you can hear our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you get them. We are also on YouTube, so if you want, you can subscribe to us. With that, we come to the end of our episode. See you! Bye!
See you. Bye!